Welcome everyone to our YouTube series, Test Prep Made Easy. So in this particular series, we are going to post regularly questions on our YouTube channel. The questions may pertain to CAT preparation, maybe pertaining to GMAT preparation, as well as of various topics which are tested in these particular exams. For example, quants, LRDI, English, and various areas which are tested. And each day we will handle certain number of questions and their video solutions. The best approach is to these questions in these videos. So have a happy preparation ahead and enjoy the video. Thank you.
All right, so these are the questions that we are going to try in today's video. If you have tried it already from the thumbnail, good enough. If you haven't, you can pause the video at this point and try it once before you look into the solutions. We recommend you doing that. But if you just want to enjoy the solution, that's also good enough. And go ahead and watch the solutions now. Well, we have a question on installments. Now, first thing you have to understand, whenever it's a question on installments, it's an application of simple interest or compound interest. So the first task for you guys will be to identify whether the rate of interest is applicable in a simple interest way or a compound interest way. So if you read this part of the problem, so two equal installments at 20% interest compounded annually at the end of each year. So there are a couple of things you can gather from this particular information itself or this part of the statement. Is that one, yes, of course, there's a compound interest involved and the rate of interest is 20%. That is one part. The second part is the installments that this person is paying off is an annual one because he's paying the equal installments at the end of each year. That is what this part tells us, right? So keeping these two things in mind, now just go through the relevant part of the information. One is the 5,000 down payment. So you need to know these terminologies whenever a question, you face a question like this. So in this question, you have this 5,000 down payment. Now, down payment is always done during the purchase. So no interest will actually be applicable because you have made the payment during the purchase itself. So this 5,000 is irrelevant when it comes to the interest part of it. Second thing, the 28,800 is paid in two equal installments. This is something we know. So if the 28,800 is paid in two equal installments, so the each installment is of 14,400. It's equal installments, right? So this is something we know. Now this first installment he has paid at the end of year one. Similarly, the second installment he has paid at the end of year two, right? And also let me keep a note of this 5,000, which is the down payment. So I'm just writing this as DP. So the down payment is 5,000. Now think about the value of the washing machine, whatever he purchased out here. So first thing, there are three parts of the value. Let's say V1, V2, and V3. This total gives us the net value of the washing machine. So the down payment that he made, as I mentioned earlier, there is no interest in involved in it, right? So one part, the V1 part of the value, I can say it is exactly 5,000 because this V1 will generate no interest, whichever he has paid off, right? Second part of the value, which he pays off after the end of year one. But on this part of this value, he has generated, or the bank has generated some interest by the end of year one. So by the end of year one, the interest generated will be 20% of this V2. So that will give us a net value of V2 into 1.2. I think everybody is aware of this. So this should be equal to this 14,400, whatever he's paying off. So let's say the V2 is paid off by year one. So what I'm assuming is V1 he has paid off initially. The V2 part of the value he's paying off at the end of year one, and the V3 part he's paying off at the end of year two. So let's think about V3 now. Now, this is the part where the simple interest or compound interest will come in. I mean, we have to utilize that. So had it been a simple interest, then we know that 40% of the value through value 3 will be added to value 3 to get the net value. So it will be V3 into 1.4, right? Just 20% each year. But since it's a compound interest in this case, I hope you're aware of this. So the net value from V3 will be V3 into 1.2 squared. So the amount will become 1.2 times of the previous amount, right? So V3 was the initial amount. That scaled up to V3 into 1.2 by the end of year 1, and that scaled up to V3 into 1.2 into 1.2 by the end of year 2. So this is the net value that is generated at the end of year 2. So this should correspond to 14,400. And since all the payment is made up, hence we can assume that this V1 plus V2 plus V3 should be equal to this V. So whatever was the net value of the washing machine, let's say this is the total amount, one part you're paying off in the initial installment, or sorry, down payment itself. The second part of the value, whatever that is, you pay off at the end of year 1. And there's a third part of the value which you pay off by the end of year 2. So this net thing should be equal to the V, right? So let us just calculate this. V1 is known to us. V2 is equal to 14,400 divided by 1.2, which will come out to be 12,000. And V3 is basically this entire thing divided by 1.2 square. I hope you are aware of that. It is 1.44. 12 square is 144. So just divide, there'll be 10,000. You'll get us the answer. So the net value, or this V, will be nothing but 5,000 plus 12,000 plus 10,000. So that will give you the net value of the machine, whatever we're looking for. Find the cost of the machine without installments. So 5,000 plus 12,000, 17,000 plus that. So that is 27,000 as our final answer, option A. So pretty easy way to look at these kind of problems. All you have to do is you need to be well aware of the ideas of simple interest and compound interest. You should know the distinguishing factor between these two. And in installment, just think about different parts of the values which are scaled up or scaled down. So all the variations that are built up on this type of problem has the basics same. So this is the basics you can apply. In some cases, the installments might be given. In some cases, the total value might be given. So it depends on it. So whichever part is missing, you can take the variable smartly and work on it in the simplest of manner. So in this case, we are not solving too many things, right? Although I have taken these variables, this is just an understanding point of view. Later on, if you practice this well, you can simply do this plus this plus this, because this will naturally occur to you and you'll get the answer in 10 seconds or something. But yes, get the basics at the right place. The simplification will happen automatically over a period of time. So this is the solution for this particular question. I hope everything was understood. Thanks for joining in. Whenever you have a profit and loss question in which the profit or loss is indicated in terms of the percentages. So in this case, you want a loss of 16.66% for some reason, but anyhow, that is what the problem statement is. So there's a loss of 16.66% involved in this question. And you have to understand one basic idea whenever it comes to these type of problems. Until and unless there is any wastage due to, fire or something like that happening, keep one basic idea to simplify the problem. The idea is always try to make the quantity equal. What I mean by that is during buying and during selling, whatever number of items you are buying or selling, make that constant. So in this question, because the information during buying is mentioned, bought 20 toffees in a rupee, so 1 rupee. So effectively, only the buying part is known to me. So I don't want to think too much. What I'm going to do is during buying, he bought 20 toffees for 1 rupee. So I'll just consider and calculate the cost of 1 toffee will be costing him 1 by 20 rupees. So this is something we can derive directly, right? Now, keeping this in mind, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate what should be the price of 1 toffee. So keeping the this thing constant, while he sells. Now understand this, there's a loss of 16.66%, which means 1/6, and the loss or profit percentage are calculated always on the CP, right? So loss is 1/6 of the CP, which implies that the loss out of CP is 1/6. So if you can do these kind of things quickly, the SP by CP thing will be 5/6. I'm subtracting 1/6 from 1. The reason I'm subtracting is because there's a loss involved. Had this been profit, I would have just added it to 1. So 1 plus 1/6 would have been 7/6. That would have been the SPCP ratio. So this should be the ratio of SPCP, which implies that the SP should be 5/6 of the CP. Now, SP of what? So this is what I was talking about. So because in the buying part, I have considered one toffee. So even in the selling part, I should consider the price of one toffee. Now, we already know that the selling price of one toffee should be 5/6 of the cost price of one toffee, right? So we know the cost price of one toffee. So just include this now and multiply 5/6 to this. So effectively, we get the answer. So this is rupees 1/24, by the way. But remember the question, we are looking for how many should we sell in a rupee. So again, we are looking for 1 rupee. So this is 1/24 rupees. So if I have 1 rupee, then that 1 rupee should be giving us 24 toffees, right? One toffee is 1/24 rupees. So 1 rupee should be 24 toffees. So that should be the answer to this problem. You can actually do this using this initial information itself. So let me just show that angle as well. So as I said, I mean, we will try to keep the the units constant. So I'll not change the unit. So instead of getting it to 1 toffee, I can keep this as 20 toffees itself. So it really doesn't matter in this context. So during selling, let's assume that he sells 20 toffees, and I'll try to figure out the price. So again, we know that the cost price of 20 toffees is 1 rupee. And from this derivation, we know that selling price of the 20 toffees, keeping the unit constant. So SP of 20 toffees should be 5/6 of the CP of 20 toffees, right? So this should be 5/6 of 1 rupee, which is 5/6. So all you have to do is just get this to rupee 1, and what should be the cost price for that? So cost price should be 6/5 times of the 20 toffees. So that should be 24 toffees, same answer. So as I said, I mean, you don't have to always do it using 1 toffee. You could have done directly this, but I just wanted to explain this from the very basic grassroots level. So that is why I converted it to 1 toffee. Otherwise, you don't have to do that as well. Just get the right approach. The right approach in this context being the quantity kept constant. Only then I can think about the percentage profit and the percentage loss. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense as long as the quantity has changed. So yeah, that's all from my side related to this question. I hope everything was understood, and thank you for joining in. What I would like you guys to take away from this question is the relevance of drawing a diagram when you have a time and distance problem. In very basic ones, which is very direct type of question, you would not require a diagram. I mean, mostly the diagram will happen visually for you in mind itself. But whenever there's a question in which a lot of things are involved, it's always safe to draw a diagram because it's related to movements only, right? So in this context, there are 2 points here where A and B are starting from, wherever that is. So let us consider, so this points X and Y here. So let us just consider this line to be the distance between X and Y. So this is the path that both of them are traveling, right? A is starting from X going towards Y, B is starting from Y going towards X, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to assume that A starts from this side. So A moves from X to Y and B moves from Y to X. So because we know they're walking towards each other, that much is known to us. And of course, we know that this entire distance is 12 kilometers. So this length is indicating 12 kilometers. Great. Now, we have few other information. So they are meeting at 1 hour. So they are starting simultaneously. Do not miss that out. And they met after 1 hour, right? So let us say they met somewhere here. So in 1 hour, A has covered this distance, and B should have covered this distance. So this is A, and this is B. So these two things are known to us. And after that, after meeting, so from here in the question, A increased the speed by 6 km/h and B decreased the speed by 6 km/h and arrive at the destination simultaneously. So what you have to gather from this is, so let us assume few things here before we move on. I'm not sure that whether I'm going to use these variables in solution, but just let me take some of these for the relevance here, maybe just for the indicating part. So I've assumed the speed of A to be small a and speed of B to be small b. So A is covering this distance with the speed of A, right? And covering for 1 hour. Also, B is covering this distance and B is also covering this distance in 1 hour, right? That is mentioned. I mean, they are meeting after 1 hour in the question itself. Now, as I said, I mean, after this, what happens? So after this, A has covered this entire distance in with a speed of A plus 6, right? So A has increased the speed by 6 and B has covered this entire distance with a speed of B minus 6, right? And because of this, what happened is A covered this distance in some T hours and B has covered this distance also in T hours, because that is what the question mentioned, right? So just read this part. They arrived at their respective destination simultaneously. So what does that mean? So after meeting, whatever time it took A to reach Y, B took the same time to reach X from the meeting point, right? So whatever is the time taken for A to cover this part of the distance, B has covered in the same time this part of the distance, right? So one thing out here which you can visually do very quickly, and that is, see, imagine this situation. So A has covered this distance with this speed, right? So what if this speed is same as the B speed? And similarly, what if B speed is same as this A speed? Now I can actually assume this because of one critical part, a critical part of the value. And that is, if you look at this increase and decrease of the speed, both are by 6, right? So A speed is increasing by 6 and B speed is reducing by 6. So I can assume that A speed becomes B speed and B speed becomes A speed. If that happens, just imagine this. So we already know that with the speed of B, you can cover this entire thing in 1 hour, right? So if the A plus 6 is B, then this will become 1 hour. And if the A plus 6 is B, then the B minus 6 is actually equal to A, isn't it? Because of that switchover thing. So because this distance can be covered with a speed of A in 1 hour, so if the B minus 6 is equal to A, then this should also be 1 hour. So if this is 1 hour and this is 1 hour, our main part of the information is met, right? They will reach the opposite point simultaneously. So if you do observe this, you should be able to understand that A plus 6 should be equal to B. Also, at the very beginning, we know that A and B are traveling with the speed of A and B, small a, small b, right? So A covers this 1 hour with the speed of A, should have covered A kilometers in this 1 hour, the first hour that is, and B should have covered B kilometers, right? Sorry, kilometers this is. So A kilometers and B kilometers should be this distance and this distance, and the A plus B is equal to 12, that is the entire distance between X and Y. So using these two, we can actually solve and we can find that A is 3 and B is 9, and that gives us our answer straight away. If you want to validate, you can validate this. But what I'll do is I'll show another approach to get this A and B thing. For that approach, one thing you have to identify is that A plus B is 12. So that part is remaining relevant. So A covers this distance is 1 hour and B covers this distance in 1 hour with a speed of small a and small b. So the respective distances covered is A plus B, which is equal to 12, or you can use relative speed as well. So A plus B is 12. This thing you should be able to identify even in the other approach. And what else you can do is, after you know that this is A kilometers, B is covering this with a speed of B minus 6, right? So for this segment, the first segment, let's say, B covers with a speed of B minus 6. So this is the speed of B and covers A kilometer. So this is the distance, right? So I'm just writing kilometers. And similarly, A, if you think, is covering this segment in with a speed of a plus 6, that is, and sorry, a plus 6, and this distance is b kilometers, which you already identified, right? So if you think about the time, so here the speed is this and the kilometers is this, so this t comes out to be a by b minus 6, and this thing comes out to be b by a minus a plus 6, sorry. So this is what you get, right? You can actually solve this out. So both are the t, so these two should be equal. So just cross multiply and you'll get the same thing. Let me show that once. Just take this off quickly. So you have this part which gives you a into a plus 6 is equal to b into b minus 6. You have something like this, and this is, by the way, a plus b into a minus b. So a plus b can be cancelled out because oh, this is b plus a into b minus a, sorry. So b plus a into b minus a, the b plus a and this a plus b, these two can go off. So we have b minus a is equal to 6 after the cancellation. So once you have this and you already have this, you can again solve to get the value of a and b. But as I said, I mean, if you that switching over idea clicks you, now please don't take an assumption out here. This is this switching over can happen only because of one point. Whatever is increased from a speed, that much is reduced from b speed. So I'm imagining it in this way. So suppose on the number line, this is a and this is b. If I increase this by 6 and I reduce this by 6, it is possible that a and b can switch over. The reason being these two are equal. So the 6 and 6 is equal. So that is the idea I utilized. If that doesn't hit you, you can solve this in this manner as well. That's my input for this particular question, everything that I had to add. I hope everything was understood, and thanks for joining in. Well, in this question, my main objective is to show you a way to utilize the variables properly. Now, whenever you utilize the variables properly, the first task is always to identify which variables to take. In this question, you can try to approach it in a trial and error method. But because even in the trial and error method, you will identify that you have to take at least one variable to justify a few things. So in that approach, it might become a little slow in this particular question. You might be lucky by selecting the right option at the very beginning, or in certain cases, it might happen in the order you have taken the options for trial and error. You know, test the correct option at the very last. So whenever you use options, there should be a bit of analysis before you go to the options. You should never do it blindly using just the options. But anyhow, enough with it. Let me just draw your attention to three things here. First of all, in this entire question, there is an involvement of present ages of a woman, her daughter, and later on, her husband's as well. This is her husband's present age, something related to that. So what I'll do is I'll start off with, if you've read the question, you'll understand what I'm doing. So I'll start by assuming the present ages, present age to be W, the daughters to be D, and the husbands to be H. So this is what I'll start with. Now, there are a few things, a few relationships that are there. Let us handle them one after the other. To begin with, we have the sum of the present ages. So this part of the information, present ages of the woman and her daughter, the sum of it, that is, let me highlight it properly. So sum of the present ages of woman and her daughter is 75 years. So this W and D should add up to 25. This is relevant. And now comes the important part. So this is another variable that you're going to use. Don't be worried about it. If you've taken it properly, that doesn't matter how many variables you're taking. Just try to understand each and everything. So when the woman attains her husband's present age, the ratio of her ages of her husband and daughter will be whatever. Now, there is one thing that I'm going to say now, and that is not from an assumption point of view. It is implicitly meant in the statement. So what I mean by that is the woman is younger than the husband. Now, this is not an assumption that I'm taking, because this question says when the woman attains her husband's present age. So that is something, some time in the future, right? Even if you don't understand straight away, just keep on reading. The ratio of the ages of her husband and daughter will be. So again, it's a future thing. So let us assume that the age minus W. So whatever is the difference of the present ages. So the husband is older than the woman. That has to be something, right, which is not mentioned. So let us assume that to be some Y number of years or something. So the H minus W is Y. So after Y years, this is happening. So what is happening, by the way? So this is after Y years, when the woman attains her husband's age, the ratio of the ages of her husband and daughter. By the way, this is talking about the age of the husband after Y years, right? So after Y years, the husband's age will be H plus this Y, and the daughter's age will be D plus this Y. And this ratio will be 2:1, that is given, right? So if you just simplify this, you have something like H plus Y is equal to 2D plus 2Y, which resolves to something like this: H minus, or let me keep the Y here, H minus Y is equal to 2D. Now, something very interesting happened here, which is actually tough to identify when you're reading the question. If you notice this H minus Y thing in this equation, so this H minus Y, if you just interchange the Y and W, you get something like H minus Y is nothing but this W, right? Because that is the wife's age, the husband's age minus Y years. So that is the wife's age. That is the difference of the ages. So this tells us that this W is equal to 2D. So now using this and this initial thing that we know, we can find the present age of the daughter, what is required in the question. So either you make it as an equation thing, or you use the ratio idea, 2:1, whichever way you do this. Okay, by the way, I'd written this wrong, right? It's 75 years, my bad. So this is W plus D is equal to 75. So this D comes out to be 3D is 75. So the D comes out to be 25, or you can use the ratio idea, 2:1, divide the 75, 50 and 25. So the daughter is 25 years old currently. So this is the entire question. I hope you understood how I took the variables and how I simplified it as we went along into the question. So just use the variables smartly and you'll automatically find a way. If you are not getting or if you're not finding a way to relate the numbers as they are presented. So that's it for this question. I hope everything was understood. Thank you for joining in.
Hopefully you liked the solutions we provided for these questions. And if you did like it, do not forget to like the video and share, subscribe and comment. Do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon. In that case, you'll get notification as soon as we upload a new video. And if you want to check a bouquet of courses that we provide, so we have a huge variant of courses from customizability to full preparation. You can check our website, www.mathoratory.com. I'll leave the link in the description below. And have an enjoyable preparation ahead. Welcome to the Math Oratory family and have a good exam ahead.